Alright, so I'm not going to do as long of an intro to this one as I tend to do. Um, it's just, it was a hard week. It was a hard week for a lot of people. I know it's been kind of nothing but hard weeks recently, but it feels like this one was especially hard for a lot of folks. I can only speak for myself and say that the school board decided, as a lot of them have, to kind of close the schools for the remainder of the year, which is a decision I completely agree with, given the circumstances and the situation. I think it's the right call, but it doesn't mean that it comes without some pain. It's a story you've heard. I have not said anything about it online or in my social media or anything like that, because I feel a lot of other people have, and I don't know, for some reason maybe I was holding out hope, but it does mean that I don't get to see my students again for the year. My seniors, I don't get a chance to. We're still trying to figure out graduation and everything, but I don't get a chance to say goodbye to them. Probably the worst for me is that the spring musical, which we already knew was kind of, we suspected all of this, but you keep trying to make backup plans and think outside the box and find ways to get around it, and eventually it just, you have to face the inevitable. And I had to do a video earlier this week, kind of explaining to my cast that the show they had worked so hard on was not gonna happen, and that and again, once again, the seniors, they weren't gonna get that send off, and we designed the show pretty much for them. So it was kind of multiple kind of kicks in the gut just all around. And before I go on, let me just say, if there are any seniors, class of 2020, be that high school, college, whatever, I hope my heart goes out to you more than anyone else. I've said it a couple times just to various people that in this situation we are all getting the shit end of the stick. Nobody is winning, but you all, I feel, definitely are getting the worst of it. You're taking more shit than the rest of us, and I can't imagine what that's like, and I just want to say my heart goes out, and I'm terribly sorry to you all for that situation. So why this is relevant and why I'm bringing this up now is because when I went to pick out a movie last night to watch in an attempt to kind of just give myself something else to do, I wanted something specific. I wanted something that was going to connect with kind of what I was feeling at that moment in some way. And when I kind of knew that's what I wanted, I knew there was only one movie that I wanted to watch and then talk about, and that is 1994's Renaissance Man, starring Danny DeVito, making his second appearance on Drive Home Reviews Forgotten Gems. So congratulations, Danny, and you're gonna have a couple more before we're all said and done with this. Because this film, I really think that this movie should be made mandatory viewing for new teachers coming in. And it's so you get the whole teacher-student film, the teacher who can reach these kids. It's a lot of how do I reach these kids kind of thing, but it is especially relevant to me and my area of study. So I wanted a movie that was gonna make me feel, I guess, validated a little bit, given my area of expertise. You always feel like you're kind of running behind the pack a little bit. At least I do, but maybe other people don't have that problem. So I reached for this movie, and I'm glad I did, because it gave me everything I needed. And yeah, so let's talk about it for those of you who haven't had the pleasure. So the film starring Danny DeVito, and Danny DeVito is a failed advertising exec who loses his job. He's in a bad place. He's divorced. His kid kind of hates him. He's in his 40s or so, and he's unemployed. Something a lot of people, a few years ago, that was a big thing. There was a whole thing of older people going back to school and all that. So this kind of predates that a bit. So anyway, he's unemployed, and the unemployment agency gets him a job on an army base. And what his job is to work with kind of a bunch of underachieving soldiers who are in danger of washing out of basic training because they're just not comprehending, basic concepts. And his job is to take them and teach them, how. And the way he kind of does this, kind of falls backwards into it, is by teaching them Shakespeare, Hamlet specifically. So yes, it is a stand and deliver, dangerous minds kind of thing. You gotta teach these kids. You gotta reach these kids, kind of thing. But with some interesting flavor and a different take on the material. Because first of all, as I said, one of the big things about this, these are not kids in the traditional sense. These are not, he's not going into a ragtag group of, school students. These are all young adults in their early 20s, so still kids essentially, but not in a, you gotta, Michelle Pfeiffer has to go teach at the roughest high school in the hood, gangster's paradise, and all that kind of way. So already we're taking a little bit of turn. We're looking more at adult education. It's funny, I said this at the beginning, but I really believe this film should be mandatory for all new teachers, because it deals with a lot of things that teachers are always being told to implement in their class, and it gives great illustrations on those concepts. One of the first things he does, mainly because he has no idea what else to do in these classes, is he has them write an essay about why I joined the Army. So that it's in the plot, it's used as a way to introduce us to the characters that we're going to be working with, and we'll get to that in a second. But from an education standpoint, it is what they're always telling us to do, is you need to get to know your students. You can't deal with all your students as, one kind of body. They're individuals. What works for one is not going to work for the other, and you need to get to know them individually to know how you need to adjust your teaching, what strategies are you going to use, and all these buzzwords. But that's something that they tell us to do, and it's something he does. While they're going through Shakespeare, the squad, the Double D's they're called, dumb as dog shit. So the Double D squad, as they're reading Hamlet, they're making connections to it based on things in their own life to help them understand the concept. Something weird like he's explaining how Hamlet's mother, Gertrude, married his uncle a short time after his father's death, and one of the Double D's, Melvin, says, well, hey, Mr. Ego, when my daddy ran out on my mama, he shacked up with her sister, and they had a kid who is my cousin, but also my sister. And that's kind of the same thing, right? And it's played as a joke, but he's making a connection with the material, with the knowledge that he has. And that's something else they're always telling you to do. Use their common knowledge. Use something that relates to them. If you want to engage the student, then you have to make it something they can associate with. And he does that. So, they talk a lot about the education system in this. And it's funny because this movie, again, from 1994, talking about, and I'm in the education system now, so it's, you know, they talk about, you know, how the education system of 1994 was failing them, that, you know, they hand out, you know, they don't get any discipline, they don't really learn anything, but they keep handing out diplomas like they're toilet paper, and then, you know, then the army has to straighten them out, or someone else has to straighten them out. And those are arguments that people make about the education system, at least ones that I've heard. One of the characters, I'm calling them by their character names and not so much their actor names. One of the double D's, Leroy, is a former football player who was, you know, All-American and all that, but hurt his ankle, so the scholarship's dried up. And he has this scene with Danny DeVito where he says, you know, they didn't care. I was black, I could play ball, that's all anyone cared about. They kept passing me. So I came out of there with no job skills, so I joined the army to try to get some. And it's like, you know, these are things that we still hear about. That's a great kind of segue into this. One of the things I really like about this movie, in terms of the characters we deal with, and we'll talk about the double D's specifically, is that they are all given unique and immediately identifiable characters with specific issues. This is not what quoting Jay and Silent Bob, this is not the Mighty Duck fucks. You know, this is not your Stain kind of stock character, the fat one, the black one, the nerdy one, you know, the small one, the girl. Well, there is the girl in there. But these are all characters fully flushed out, three-dimensional, all of whom with their different issues and their different reasons. You know, you have, again, Leroy, the former football player. You have Melvin, who is kind of not kleptomania, what's the word? Narcolepsy. He keeps falling asleep. And when they find out, and what I love is they don't just give you these people with these quirky character traits. Oh, Melvin's the one who falls asleep. You're given a scene to explain why he does it. He gets a letter from home where his little brother is saying that, you know, their stepdad's beating him, and says that, I guess since you left, he's turned his attention on us now. So you have somebody who is sleeping to try to avoid, you know, the world. You have Haywood, played by Mark Wahlberg in his first film role. This is the first movie he ever did. And you have Montgomery, who's kind of the loudmouth, always talking, always got a smart quip. I can tell you right now, I recognize that character from several of my classes. You have Myers, who is the girl. Ironically, they kind of show why all the other characters are in this and why they're not considered the smartest. They never quite give you a reason why Myers is in there. She seems pretty on the ball. You know, they show that she had like a trouble with like one thing, and like that's it. So you're never quite sure what she's doing in there. You've got Hobbs, who seems really intelligent, but he seems like he's always hiding something. You've got Davis, whose father was a soldier in Vietnam, who was killed, and he's kind of hero worshipped him all of his life, and he wants to be like him, but is fallen short. So all of the you have Benitez, probably my favorite of them. Kind of good old New York kind of guy. So right away, the fact that I can remember all of their names and which is which, that's pretty good. Because there are other movies I've seen hundreds of times and I can't tell you, who's who in some cases. But yeah, unique characters with unique issues, and the movie follows that path of, him teaching them kind of one of the biggest things, and a thing I've had to teach kids, and I've had people try to teach me, and I still have problems with it. That age-old lesson that you are not dumb. You don't need things dumbed down for you. You can rise up to the level. You don't need the level brought down to you. And so he's teaching them that and helping them kind of with their individual things, and they're helping him out. Going again with character, I like the Danny DeVito character. It is a very Danny DeVito role in that he's a bit sarcastic. He's kind of snarky. He's a bit of an ass. But again, I like that they don't take a real easy way out with him. For instance, his thing is that he's unemployed and he needs money. He wants money. He's not doing this initially because he loves it. He's doing it because he needs the job. And what I like is that they don't paint him as like an Ebenezer Scrooge. Oh, I just want money. That's all I care about is money. You show that he wants money because, he has bills to pay. He's got alimony to pay. He's got a kid to take care of. So you understand his motivations for why, he's just kind of doing it and not really connecting with them at first. Another interesting thing, and I feel like the movie goes there but doesn't beat us over the head with it, is this interesting kind of debate between the perception of the Army, especially in the early 90s, perception of the Army versus the actual life in the Army. These days, I don't want to say thanks to the war in the Middle East, because nothing is thanks to that, but because of it, a result of it is we don't tend to hate on our military anymore, at least not the common soldiers, the on the ground kind of guys and gals. We respect them, we worship them, but in the 90s we still had that, the military, evil kind of thing. And Danny DeVito's character is very much in that mindset. He doesn't like the Army, and you can tell from right away he doesn't have a lot of respect for the Army. And where that kind of comes into with conflict is he gets into immediate conflict with the drill sergeant played by Gregory Hines, who does love the Army and does feel like he's doing a good job and an important job. And of course they start butting heads because Danny DeVito has no respect for what he's trying to teach them. Gregory Hines has no respect for what Danny DeVito's trying to teach them. And they get into it. And what I like is, how to say this correctly, I am not by any means a conservative. Many of my views are way more liberal than they are conservative. So I'm not a conservative mindset. But I also wouldn't consider myself a liberal. And I find that in other movies or shows like this, there's that tendency to show, and I don't mean this insultingly, so I'm not trying to insult anybody, I'm using buzzwords and terms, the quote-unquote liberal, the outsider, the civilian, as being the know-it-all. Go watch the TV show MASH and watch how Alan Alda is always right and the Army is always wrong and everybody running the Army doesn't care and they're all stupid, and if they all just listened to Hawkeye, then everything would be all right. And I think in a lesser film they'd go that route, but they don't. What they try to do, what the late Penny Marshall as the director tries to do, is try to say, no, there's a balance here. I like movies where there is a balance. Okay? And there's a great scene where Danny DeVito, he gets in trouble because he's fighting with the drill sergeant, so they send him to the commanding officer's office. And the commanding officer says, I can tell you don't have much respect for us. So I take it you're not a military man. And Danny DeVito says, nah, my military service is limited to the time. I walked from Arlington Cemetery to the White House carrying the sign with the name of a soldier who died needlessly in Vietnam. And the colonel says, that's great. Do you remember the name of that soldier? And he's like, no. And it's that moment of him kind of realizing, don't just use us. You might not like the machine that runs us, and you might disagree with what they tell us to do, but these are people, these are real folks trying to do a job that most folks can't do or are unwilling to do. And don't use us, don't use that kid as, just Don't use him as a stepping stone the way you accuse everyone else of using him as a stepping stone for your own agenda. And again, they're not saying that Danny DeVito's wrong. They're not going, this isn't a, take that, liberal kind of thing. It's a thing of understanding the other guy's point of view. And this comes into play in, without a doubt, the best scene in the movie. I talked, when I was doing Ernest Goes to Camp, I talked about how sometimes a single scene and a single performance can elevate a film or a project up. It takes it up another level. And I feel that this is another example of that. This film is very good. So it doesn't have the problem of kind of like that Ernest did, where it's not that great a movie, but this one scene makes it important. This is a good movie, but I think this scene elevates it to a really good movie. So, and ironically, it also involves rain. So, Danny DeVito, for reasons I won't get into, goes to where they're training one night. It's pouring down rain because he needs to talk to the drill sergeant about something. And the drill sergeant, Gregory Hines, is just shrugging him off because he doesn't have any respect for him. He doesn't like him. Thinks his class is a waste of time. And trying basically to prove it. Trying to prove that the class is a waste of time and it's not doing anything, and to kind of humiliate Danny DeVito and his double D's. He calls on Benitez, the New Yorker, and he says, you study Shakespeare. I want to hear some. Recite Shakespeare for me. So Benitez recites the St. Crispin's Day speech from Henry V. A monologue about a soldier, a king, but still a soldier, rallying his troops on the eve of a great battle. And this scene is just fucking phenomenal for a number of reasons. Number one, it's just a damn good speech. St. Crispin's Day speech is one of my favorites. It's overdone and overquoted like all of Shakespeare, but I feel like it was put here because it fit the situation and it serviced the characters and the furthering of the story. It wasn't just there to be a cute catchphrase. So that's number one. Number two, and I'm gonna mispronounce, pardon me, the actor Lilo Bernaccio, and I apologize, my paisan, for mispronouncing your name. Sorry, my Goomba. He kills it. The actor playing Benitez, Lilo Bernaccio, he fucking kills that speech. It is so good. He does an amazing performance of it. And the reason why it's amazing is because the character is associating the lines with what he himself is going through. Talking about, going through all of this with the other double D's and them being friends and being brothers, and he who sheds his blood with me today will be my brother. So you see that in his performance again, which is fucking outstanding. But you also see, without words being spoken, just in Gregory Hines' performance. So this is a testament to how good Gregory Hines was as a performer. Just in him watching and listening to the lines. At first you see it, and it's all silent. It's all just done with his facial expression. At first you see him kind of, fuck, he's really doing it. Maybe they are, he's not going to embarrass himself. But then as the speech goes on, you can see the look kind of changing to that is the perfect description of a soldier's life, and a perfect description of what he as a drill sergeant would probably say to his troops right before a big battle. And you see that realization that what they're learning in Danny DeVito's class is not actually going against what he's trying to teach them. It's enforcing it, and it's doing more than just making them better soldiers. It's letting them understand why they're doing it and what they're getting out of it. It is a fucking amazing scene. I love this scene so much that in my intro classes, I show this to them as an example of a great Shakespearean performance when we're talking about, dissecting the dialogue and breaking down the metaphor, and then we go through and we break it down bit by bit. I can't say enough good things about that scene. It is a perfect scene. Is this movie perfect? No, but it's pretty damn close. There's not a lot really bad about this movie. Some of the character transitions are a little choppy. Of course, as Danny DeVito is teaching them, they are teaching him, the great, cliche, I teach them, but really they're teaching me. Of course that happens, and he becomes more interested in doing a job that is important and is helping people than he does about, just needing money to get by. He becomes a better father and all that. But I don't know. It just feels like his turn, he doesn't get as much from them as they get from him. I think they could have done just a little bit more. Some of the character threads are just a little cut short. Again, with the character of Myers, the one female in the class, I'm not really sure why she's there. She doesn't seem to have kind of the same comprehension problems the others do. I'm not sure. So that's very unclear. So she doesn't really get a character arc like the rest of them do. So that's the one girl doesn't get the character arc. There was something else and it just went right out of my head. Right out of it. But it couldn't have been that important then. But on the whole, I think the movie is pretty rock solid. It's funny at the right times. There's a great scene where Danny DeVito is chasing after them, and he's chasing them on the obstacle course, and they have this thing called the Victory Tower, which is basically this huge jungle gym thing they got to get on. Where he's doing that, he's climbing up, and a lot of it is Danny DeVito. So you got to give him props. Except there's a couple times where he's leaning back, and they're doing a shot from the ground up, and suddenly Danny DeVito's legs get a lot longer, which is difficult because come on, Danny DeVito is a short guy with stubby legs. It's got to be hard to find a stunt double for him because almost anybody is taller than him. But it's funny, it's heartwarming, and it is, I don't want to say life-affirming. I think that's giving it too much credit. But at least from my perspective, and again, my particular field of study when it comes to education, I feel like it gives credence to it. It gives it, there's a reason why studying the arts, studying Shakespeare, studying plays, it's not just for people who want to go to Broadway. One of the hardest challenges I have every year is with that intro to theater class is trying to convince them this isn't just the stuff we're going over. It's not just, to be an actor. There are lessons to be learned here. And I think this movie really is well structured and puts it to it. It's a great movie. And again, I think it should be viewing for new teachers. It illustrates a lot of the theories that they want us to work from. So if you're in education, even if you're a 30-year vet of education, and you've never seen this movie, I suggest checking it out. I suggest checking it out anyway, because it's a good movie. So there you go. So that's Renaissance Man. Just to wrap up here, I know I kind of started out on a little bit heavier note. So just to say the story has, if not a happy ending, at least a more uplifting one. We had to cancel the show, but I've been in contact with some of my theater students. We're going to try some theatrical endeavors that can accommodate with social distancing and all that. So I got to talk with some of my students the other day, and it was really great. It was great to see them, and they're real excited about this new project. So just kind of want to throw that out there. The story has an uplifting ending. So I hope you all are doing well after the week. Again, I know it was a hard one for a lot of people, but we plowed through it, and we'll plow through the next one and the next one, and we will keep going. Anyway, I hope everyone is doing all right. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, keep calm, carry on, and drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.